What a lot of people don't tell you though is that your first relationships with artists are not always going to work out. Just like if you're a producer, you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I need a Drake placement. Like, no, bro, you need a placement with like all of your local rappers first. The thing with producers is most of the time they're so wrapped up in the world of producers because it's so different from the rest of the world. And he's like, okay, never mind. And literally like 3 months later, he blew up and had like one of the biggest songs of his career.
W tym odcinku będę rozmawiał ze Stafford, który jest producentem ze Stanów Zjednoczonych. Posiada on swoją stronę internetową, czyli Producer Crate, na której sprzedaje on kity Własne, a także innych producentów. Poza tym organizuje on eventy dla ludzi tworzących muzykę i sam regularnie działa w przemyśle muzycznym, pracując z różnymi producentami i artystami. Jak zwykle porozmawiamy sobie o wielu aspektach, które przydadzą się każdemu producentowi, o zdobywaniu placementów, o budowaniu marki, o wielu innych rzeczach z tym związanych. No a później zrobimy sobie razem beat używając mojej paczki Lunatic Production Suite, ale bez zbędnego gadania już zaczynamy. What's going on, guys? Today I'm with Stafford.
What's going on?
First of all, tell me how long you've been making music and where you found the passion for music, basically.
Okay, so I've been making music for, I guess technically my entire life. Like, I've always been a little bit into musical things. Like, I took some piano lessons and stuff when I was growing up, but I didn't really get into it seriously until actually January 1st of 2020. It was kind of crazy. Like, that exact day, I had a buddy of mine who I hadn't talked to in years hit me up, and he knew that I had FL Studio because I had it from when I was like 13 or 14, but I hadn't really messed with it too much. He's like, yo, man, I'm making beats now. Like, I know you do a lot of computer stuff. You should. He was saying he learned how to rap, and he was like, yeah, man, you should learn how to make some beats since you used to like have FL Studio and whatever. Like, we were just trying to find something to do. So I was like, okay, bet. So we hopped on a Discord call. I was sitting there. I made the worst beat ever, and then he made like the worst song ever. And it was kind of history since then. I realized then I used to make like EDM and stuff like that. So I kind of realized then that I like making beats a lot more than I like EDM because it's like much more of a collaborative process. And it's kind of been my whole thing. So
And for now, did you make a living of your music and what's your main source of income?
most definitely. So I have been full-time off of music since early 2021. So I used to be in the military and I started making more from music than I was my military paycheck. And at the time, it was mostly off beats. I was just selling a bunch of beats, working with a lot of artists directly. And I mean, since then, I've developed so many different businesses now. Like, I run the Producer Crate, so I sell kits to people. I run underground retreats, so we host these awesome mansion events. I'm doing photography and stuff like that now. So it's very diverse right now. There's a lot of different things that I'm making money off of.
So before I ask about the Producer Crate and those retreats, right? I want to ask you, what's your advice for anyone who's trying to go full-time and basically live off their craft?
I would say the biggest thing when it comes to being full-time is really set up a good foundation for yourself. And what I mean by that is you need to have a good understanding of how music adapts and changes, because the same things that can make you full-time right now are not going to be the same things that will support you in 3 or 4 years. And it's not the same thing as whatever it was 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I was selling a lot of beats back then, but I probably couldn't be full-time just off of selling beats the same way that I did it before. So if you build a foundation of being able to easily adapt to everything and you're able to quickly figure out like, okay, this is how I need to shift my business, be open to different trends, be open to different mindsets, that's probably your biggest thing. Because there's so many different ways to go full-time, but it's like, how can you make sure that you're actually sustaining yourself rather than just being full-time for like a year and then your process not working anymore?
Facts. And would you say that if you want to go full-time, you gotta have this business mindset, kinda?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have a business mindset. I would say it's very important to diversify as well, because that's part of adapting and like changing to different trends and stuff. Is if you have all your bases covered, like for me, it's like selling beats, doing the retreats, doing Producer Crate, doing photography. If one of those sources randomly went out, maybe there was a thing that hypothetical situation, beats are 100% AI now. It's like super hard to sell beats or whatever. If that goes out, I still got a bunch of other things holding me up to be a full-time creative. I'm not relying on just one single thing.
Yeah, right. So can you talk more about those retreats? How does it look like? And if you got profit from them as well?
Yeah, for sure. So Underground Retreats is the brand that I started. And basically, for anybody that doesn't know what it is, I bring anywhere from 30 to 100 musicians. So it could be producers, artists, whoever else that makes music, as well as other creatives like videographers. And they all come to a mansion in different locations. And and stay there for the whole week. And during that week, you just make music, content, learn from guest speakers. Now we do an album every single time. I make a little bit of money off of it. Technically, on paper, it looks like a lot more than it is. I get that question a lot, actually, because I charge people to come, obviously, because I can't, just host it for free and do all the content and everything like that for it. So after paying for the B&B and having video crews come and guest speakers and my own travel and everything, I probably only make like $1,000 or $2,000 off of a retreat. I don't know. It's not why I do it. I definitely do it so that we can build a community and really just have a really large network of people together at the same time. So it's like if I get 500 artists to come to these retreats over the course of a couple of years, which we've done, if one single one of those pops off, that's helpful for everybody, because if they went to a retreat and they blew up, now the retreats are going to get more attention, and everybody who makes music there, is eventually going to be able to get more attention off that as well.
When it comes to Producer Crate, you are the owner of it, or you just like the part of it?
Yeah, I founded it. It's actually just me, except for one person that I hired to help me out with some day-to-day stuff. Shout out to Cadet. He's super fire. But yeah, we actually just hit our 2-year mark, and other than him helping out with stuff, it's been 100% me.
And what's your advice for anyone who's trying to launch their own website or brand when it comes to selling kits and stuff like that?
I would say definitely go for it. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it, but I would definitely recommend figuring out a way that nobody else is doing it, because so many people sell kits right now, right? And it's just like so many people sell beats. The thing that's really going to separate you, first of all, is going to be your brand. So if you have a brand that's revolved around something specific, like you as a producer or, whatever else that might be, that's going to be very important. So one thing that sets the Producer Crate apart, for example, and the whole reason that I started it, is because I noticed there's a lot of websites around that's like, there's so many specific ways that you have to be able to get in. So like with Drum Broker, it's a really great website. They have really great quality, but not anybody could just go post a kit there. Websites like Sonic's from Kavi, super fire, but it's only his kits. Again, there's a lot of sites like that. Or you get something like BeatStars, which is open to everybody. Everybody could post on there, so not every single kit is going to be, the best kit. So my mindset with Producer Crate is, let's let anybody who wants to post on there post, but they have to go through a quality check first to make sure that, it's good enough for the site. So that way we get the same quality as something like Drum Broker, but we're not like limited to one genre. So it's not necessarily that that's like the quote unquote better way to do it, but it's just what sets us apart. So if a customer wants to come and know that it's going to be, something that's unique, something that's different, they come to Producer Crate. If they want something that has a specific type of sound, maybe they'll go to a site that's based on a specific sound.
Yeah, okay. So how much % do you take when you post other people's kits, basically?
It kind of depends on the deal we do, but most of the time it's about 50% if it's non-exclusive, meaning they could post on our site, but they also post it on other websites just because we're the only ones bringing traffic to theirs on the Producer Crate. But if it's exclusive, it kind of depends on the situation, but at the lowest you'll keep 70%, and that's for, us doing the marketing, assuming that you're going to help bring some people in as well.
Okay, cool. And changing subject more to you than Producer Crate, you got over 200 listeners on your Spotify account, right?
Yeah, I think my Spotify right now is at like 250,000, something like that.
Yeah, so like, what's your advice for any producer who's trying to grow their Spotify account? Because we know not every producer has it, but they probably could. What's the best way to build that catalog and like really build that account?
I feel like it's very important for producers to have their own Spotify pages, just because it gives you, your own catalog, right? So I'm not really doing anything extra or different with my Spotify. The only thing that's changing is when these artists upload the songs that I worked with them on, they're just also adding me as a primary artist. So I don't really post beats specifically per se. I know a lot of producers go that route, and that's great, and it could definitely be very successful, but I really like working with artists one-on-one. I like being part of the session, like helping them write, helping figure out, like how the record should go. And I found for me personally, I'm really good at dictating like how a song should be put together. So instead of just making the beat and sending it to the artist, I'll send it to the artist, and when they send me something back, I'll be like, okay, let's actually make this part the hook. Let's rearrange it a little bit like this. Maybe we'll get a feature on this part instead. And I'm really just not afraid to hurt artists' feelings and be like, okay, this one's not it, this one is it, and just figure out how to make the best record possible. Kind of like how DJ Khaled does it, like that type of vibe. But I'm also very involved in the production process, the writing process. But yeah, yeah, that's where I shine. So when I work with an artist closely on that, we'll release the song together, and then usually that can justify getting me more royalties, especially with like independent artists, because a lot of times producers will get like, I don't know, like 10-15% on the master. But if I'm doing a co-release and I'm an artist and I've like triple their monthly listeners, I get 50-60% of the song, no problem.
Yeah, that's a great way. And like, would you say that more producers should do more process? Let me say, like you said, you tryna get involved into really arranging the song and changing the other stuff, not only just the beat. So would you say that more producers should be, let's say, more involved in whole process, not just like send the beat and that's it?
I think everybody shines in different ways. For me personally, like I said, that's what works for me. What works for me might not work for other people, but I would say definitely give it a try. It's a lot of fun to be involved in the full record, and that's what I've been pushing to a lot of producers recently too, is that there's so much more to music than just the beats. Like the thing with producers is most of the time they're so wrapped up in the world of producers because it's so different from the rest of the world. Any random person on the street does not know what a sample maker is, right? They don't know what a loop maker is. They don't know what drums are even half the time, or like 808s. Most people probably couldn't tell you. So I'm always trying to push producers to expand beyond just the world of producers and figure out like, okay, what kinds of things that can we do that people who don't make music would understand? How can we be entertaining to people who have never touched FL Studio in their life? How can we be part of a record that is going to have more significance than just putting a beat out there? But like I said, that's me personally. A lot of people, they shine just making beats and sending them out. You know, it's very, very successful for them. But yeah, that's just what I do personally. And I would say it's definitely a good idea. Try it out, at least, if you haven't.
Okay, cool. And what would you say is the best advice to build a brand as a producer and also earn from it? Because as we know, you got multiple sources of income right now because of your brand, because of the producer grade and all other stuff, whole bunch of stuff. So what would you say is the best advice for producers to build that brand and really earn from it in multiple ways?
There's a lot of ways that you could build up your brand. One of the main things I would say when it comes to building your brand is just the way you present yourself online. If you just put out your absolute most true personality, you're going to do fine. You're going to be able to build your brand without any problems. What a lot of producers do is they feel like they have to, overthink and do so many extra steps to create, quote unquote, create a good brand. But as a producer, I don't really like calling it a brand as much anymore as I like calling it an entity, because an entity is like, that's just you, you are whatever your producer name is. And what I tell a lot of people is that if you put your full, unguarded personality out there on the internet, there's like 8 billion people out there, bro. At least one of those people is gonna like really, really fuck with, however you put yourself out there, because everybody's different, but a lot of people are attracted to different types of personalities. And the worst thing that you could do for yourself is sit there trying to be somebody that you're not. So like, if you're not a producer who likes to be all cool and mysterious online and you rather be funny and say some dumb shit sometimes, do that, because you're going to find your audience there and you're not going to have to think like, okay, how do I be cool and mysterious? Instead, just be like, what am I thinking? Just put it out there, So definitely don't overthink your brand. Figure out like what's truest to you. And it's hard at first for sure, but once you get in the habit of just, this is me, then it becomes so much easier for you. And like that actual brand building process isn't as hard.
100%. And would you say that acting like being mysterious and all of that stuff can kind of kill your brand or like kill your income, even in some cases, like being too, let me say, quiet or whatever, just not posting enough content or whatever, just, acting like you so mysterious so people don't even know who you are sometimes?
Honestly, yeah, I feel like trying to be the cool, mysterious producer is not really it anymore. I feel like that was a trend that was there for like, 2016, 2017, maybe early 2020s too. And the thing is, a lot of producers try to be like that because they see some of these people that are like already very big producers, and that's kind of what their vibe is. Like they don't post a lot. They're not, very active on socials. But the thing is, with a lot of the bigger successful producers that do that, or, even artists or whatever, is they're doing stuff on the back end, right? They're in the industry. That's a whole different side of the game. Like if you're in the social media game, you can't be cool and mysterious. Like it's not going to work. I would say like the best example of somebody who kind of has that entity is Beats by Cryptic. Shout out to Cryptic. He's super fire. He's a great sound designer. But the thing is, like, he's spent so long building up his name across like YouTube and all the placements that he's gotten and the super unique sound that he has. But even though he's like quote unquote that cool and mysterious kind of brand, he's really not. Like he's posting all the time about what he's doing. He just has a certain aesthetic that he follows. So if you're one of those producers that's like only has one post up at a time, only has, you know, like doesn't post reels, doesn't post stories really ever, like barely responds to people, that's not going to help you at all. Like that's just going to kill everything you're doing, because you're trying to be like somebody that's in the industry that's, you know, making money on the back end, doing all these sessions and stuff. And if that's what you're doing, go for it. But if you're trying to make it in the social media game, absolutely not. Like it's not going to do anything for you, especially right now in 2024. It's so important to be posting content so much. Like I run all these different brands, but you'll notice I post content all the time for all of them. I'm very big on doing like 5 reels a week. I take the weekends off. I don't post on Saturday or Sunday usually, unless I have something like really specific that I want to post. But like post 5 reels a week, make a tile post once or twice a week. Like people want to know what you're doing. People want to know what you're up to and, you know, understand your brand, understand your goals. And probably one of the better things that you could do for yourself is always act busier than you are. Even for me, I'll be hella busy some weeks, but I always post as if I'm like the most hardworking, the most, you know, whatever person. Because as long as I'm always giving off that impression, like people know I'm gonna get shit done. If I meet my deadlines, I'm doing what I say I'm gonna do, and then I'm just posting hella, like in the studio today, doing this today, you know, it could definitely be very beneficial to you.
Yeah, right. That's a very interesting mindset that is on point, really. What would you say is the key thing when it comes to building that relationships with artists and really getting those records like done, released, and all of that stuff? Like, let's say somebody wants to start working with artists, he's a new producer or whatever, like what should he do to really build that connections, build that relationships with artists and really work with them on a daily basis?
All right, so if you're a new producer, you're just starting out and, you know, you're hearing from a lot of people that you need to build up with artists, that is 100% facts. What a lot of people don't tell you though is that your first relationships with artists are not always going to work out. It's kind of like dating, right? You meet different girls, but like not every girl is supposed to be the girl that you're going to marry. You know, like when you're trying to work with a rapper long term, you got to find somebody that, one, fucks with your sound, two, fucks with you as a person, and, you know, like that's mutual. As long as you have those things, I mean, it's definitely a lot easier. But then you also have to take into account what's their work ethic like, what's my work ethic like, you know, how often are they trying to cook up, how often, you know, am I trying to cook up? And it's probably going to take a while for you to find that artist. But what I wouldn't do is go and message like 100 artists like, yo man, let's work, I love your stuff. Personally, I hate when I get messages like that, because I know that 99% of the time people have not checked out anything that I did, you know? So find artists that you genuinely fuck with, like spend a lot of time listening to music, spend a lot of time trying to discover artists or whatever. And when you find somebody that genuinely sticks out to you and you genuinely think is good, you know, maybe has some potential, whatever, like send them a message and be like, hey man, I checked out this song, I'm a producer, I make these types of beats, I think it would be really cool if we did a couple songs together, I won't charge you, you know, let me know. And that's going to be so much more effective than just trying to DM 100 artists and be like, yo, let's work, love your stuff, bro, I got beats. Or like trying to make, you know, $10 on every beat that you ever did. I actually have a story about one of my biggest fumbles as a producer, right? And it was because I was not trying to give anything out for free. So do you know 347 Aiden?
I recognize the name, but I don't know who he is.
Yeah, so he's an artist that blew up with Kenny Beats, or with a song he did with Kenny Beats, and he's become very successful. But right when I was starting to really get into production, I was making these lo-fi beats. I was like really into lo-fi beats, and I had this pack that I was trying to sell because I was trying to follow some course that was like, you know, make a pack of beats and then try to sell it, you know, whatever, and like don't give anything out for free, all that bullshit. So I had this little 10 pack of lo-fi beats for $10, right? Unlimited lease to all of them. And 347 Aiden posted a story like, hey, I'm looking for lo-fi beats. And this is like way before he blew blew up. This is like, he's underground, like not that many people know him. He's starting to build up a name for himself, but I'm like, yo man, like I got some dope lo-fi beats for you that you should check out. And he asked me to send them to him, but I sent him a link to the thing. He's like, oh, can you just send me the beats? I was like, nah bro, they $10, like you pay me. And he's like, okay, never mind. And literally like 3 months later, he blew up and had like one of the biggest songs of his career. And I was just sitting there like, damn, I could have had a song with him, but instead I was trying to get $10 out of it. The lesson from that is like, when you're trying to build up with an artist, just send them some beats, bro. A lot of producers have it all wrong. Like selling that $10 10 pack of beats 100 times will get you what, like $1,000, right? What's $1,000, right? If you could sell something 100 times, you only make it $10 every time. If you're actually having to put in an effort to make each one of those sales, that ain't shit. My monthly expenses are like $2,500 a month at least. Like, what's that doing for you? You know, so it's always going to be more worth it, especially when there's an artist that you actually believe in. Just send them stuff. Like, find people that you really fuck with, find people that really fuck with your sound, and just work. Put your head down, work.
Facts. When it comes to having multiple things on your head, like being content creator, having kid side, having all of that other stuff, first of all, is it hard? And second, should a producer, okay, let's say some producer is trying to make it, right? And he do type beats, he do content, he do all of that stuff. Is it better for him to focus on one thing and go 100% on it? Or should he, let's say, roll a couple things at the same time, so maybe one of them eventually go well? What would you say about it?
So I would say it's definitely in the middle. So to answer your first question, it's technically hard, right? Like there's a lot of things that I have to do and there's a lot to keep up with, but I love all of it. So really, it's not that hard. But if you're a newer producer and you're trying to have a similar path to what I'm doing, you're trying to have like a big diverse portfolio, you know, be able to make money from a lot of different things, I would say when you're first learning how to make beats, just focus on that. It was probably about a year ago. I took not necessarily a break, but like I stepped back from beats just a little bit so I could just really lock in and learn photography and videography. So I'm a big believer in like when you're learning something, try to make that your main focus. And then when you find that your beats are at a really good level, you don't necessarily have to get out the jump making, 5 different brands. You don't need to do that. But there's definitely easier ways to diversify what you're doing without having to take too many extra steps. I always tell people this: when you make a beat, export the hi-hats as a hi-hat MIDI. Export all the drums as a drum loop. Like if you made any special effects or sounds, save them and then export your beat. Because then not only did you make a beat, but you made all this stuff that could go in a kit. You could export the sample, you could send that out on top of sending your beat out, and it just, you're really recycling everything to make the most out of it. So I would say that's definitely a good way to start. But also, some people prefer to lock in on just one thing, and I could technically be doing the wrong thing. Like if my only focus was making beats, I might be able to have a Drake placement right now. Who knows? Like if that was my only focus. But for me personally, I'm trying to prove that theory wrong. Like that's what stands out about me, is I'm trying to prove the theory wrong that like you need to niche down on one thing. I'm building up a bunch of different avenues, not even just in music, but in photography and videography and all types of shit. I do documentaries, like all that. But for me, I'm not really focused on like, okay, I have to make it huge. Like if that happens, awesome. I'm so here for it, and I'm going to set myself up so that that could happen. I love my life, bro. All I do every day is just things that I find fun and exciting to work on. And for me, that's how I like living my life. I'm able to, support myself, help my girlfriend out with some stuff. I got a roof over my head, paid for with all this. So it's like, that's what makes me happy. And, eventually that's going to keep expanding. But at the end of the day, just do whatever feels right. Just don't be lazy about it.
Great advice, And when you manage all of those things, right? Do you have a schedule, like what you should do on a daily basis? You got any time frames? You got some free time? How does it look like?
So I'm like the most organized person you'll ever meet. You know how some people are like, they'll have a messy room, but they're like, I could tell you exactly where everything is. It's like that for me with my schedule. Like I have certain things that I keep track of. Like I've got a calendar that I save any important dates on because I do like wedding photography and stuff like that, concerts and shit. So I'll put those on my calendar, and, I'll have like specific days set aside. But typically I just have like long-term goals, like monthly and yearly goals, and sometimes even longer as well. And each morning I start out by just writing in a journal like exactly what I'm going to do throughout the day. It's just like a little journal. I like to handwrite it rather than using like Notion or anything like that personally. But yeah, just every morning, drink some coffee, write down my goals goals for the day so I don't lose track of any of the important tasks. And then a lot of my time is really just spent on the things that I find fun and exciting. There's like sometimes I'm going to think something is more exciting that day, or like, I think of a new project. I'm always thinking of new projects. I'm like, okay, I want to start working on this today. It's like something that I just came up with today. I'm not very big on like having a plan for something and then executing it in a few days or whatever. Like when I get a video idea, I want to start scripting it right away. When I have a TikTok idea, I want to just go film it right away. If I decide that I want to like try getting into a new type of photography, I'm going to try to find a model and try to, start doing it today. So yes and no to answer your question. Like I kind of plan it out, but I kind of don't, because I like keeping an open schedule so I can do different things throughout the day. I like it being dynamic.
Okay, cool. So would you say that everybody should do how they feel, right? What works for them?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's definitely going to have different processes. But yeah, if you just try out a bunch of different ways, like for a week or 2 weeks at a time, eventually you're going to find something that works for you. But at the end of the day, make sure that you're holding yourself accountable, you're keeping track of your timelines, and that you're staying consistent with whatever you do. But as long as you're doing those things, you could do whatever you want. A lot of people will oftentimes like say they like a specific schedule, but it's really just because that's the easiest, laziest one for them to do. Like you really, especially in music, it's a tough industry. You have to be hardworking and you have to be goal driven. And if you're not, it's very easy to fall off.
Thanks. So what would you say is the biggest mistake that producers do just way too often? You see them do it over and over, or maybe too much people doing it at the same time. What would you say it is?
Biggest mistake that I see producers doing is probably what I was talking about earlier, where they're like mass sending messages and like expecting results like that, or just like DMing a shit ton of people. That used to be a pretty effective way to market. Like I'm not gonna lie, that's how I was doing it for a long time when I first started. But again, times change. Things happen, different over the course of, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And I know that there's been a ton of content from different producers, especially on YouTube, that's like, okay, I made a bunch of money doing this, so you should try this. And they're like, just DM a ton of people, volume, like go crazy, message Travis Scott's producer, go to Genius and DM all the producers on there. But it's like, if you're not at those producers level, either like beat wise, or like they don't feel like you're gonna be any more valuable to them than any other producer, they're not gonna fuck with that. They're not gonna answer you, and it's probably gonna ruin your chances in the future. So it's very important to build up with people who are at a similar level with you. It's like rappers rapping about like their success and their money and shit like that. It's like if a rapper is out the gate talking about how much money he's got, how he likes to drive a BMW, but it's like his first song, nobody's going to take him seriously. Just like if you're a producer, you're just starting out and you're like, oh, I need a Drake placement. Like, no, bro, you need a placement with like all of your local rappers first. Like, understand what goes into a record, understand what, goes into making a really good beat, understand the different levels of beats and different styles, like very intricately. And then, once you've built up somewhat of a brand or a name for yourself, start branching out, start finding the producers that you think are going to work well with you. Like, just messaging a shit ton of people is not really it anymore.
And what's your last advice for producers who tryna make it, let's say in 2024 or whatever, they tryna get replacements, just live off music? Your last advice when it comes to mindset, work ethic, or anything in general?
My last piece of advice for producers would definitely be make sure that you're actually doing it for the music and that you actually give a fuck about making the music better. Like, if you are not interested in just making good music and you wouldn't do it for free, you're never going to make it full time. And if you do want to be full time, make sure that not only do you love it, but you love it so much that you could literally just sit down and do it every day, and, including the things that are not as fun. If you want to be full time with music and you want to make it last a long time, make sure that you actually love it, because there's a lot of people that'll go full time for like a year or two and they don't actually love music and they're lying to themselves, and then they fall off and they're sitting here like trying to scam people, or they're just doing bad business or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, like, they're not going to be full time with music for very long because they just don't really love it. And also on top of that, if you don't really love it, it's still okay to make it. You can't not produce just because it's not where your heart's at. If it's not where your heart's at, don't try to make it full time, because then you're just going to end up hating it.
Great advice, bro. Okay, let's cook up now.
Let's get it.
So first I'm about to take this one shot, try to mess up with it. I like to make it unique, try to switch it. It's kinda harsh, so I will use slow filter.
Yeah, that's fire.
Add some pancake.
Hell yeah.
I like to render everything, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, that's hard.
Okay, let me just add the bass and we will be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, it's ready. And do you like it?
Yeah, it's hard, bro. Let's see. I'm about to do something crazy. I don't know. Have you ever seen the this button in Edison?
Yeah, it's like the blur or something.
Yeah. Slap this on there like 4 or 5 times. And then render it out. This shit sounds crazy. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm just adding one more section real quick. I'm doing like a little switch up and then should probably be pretty close to done. part's almost like a switch up too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so the beat came on fire, bro. Like, the switch ups are crazy.
Hell yeah, that was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, so appreciate you pulling up today. You gave a lot of value, a lot of gems for the community. So really appreciate that. Thank you for that. And do you like the kit?
Yeah, man, it's hard for sure. That's definitely one that that would get my cosign.
Thank you. And also, if you got any projects on the way, any plans, you can share with us.
I think right now the biggest focus is just pushing the retreats more. We have a song coming out as a group on August 23rd. It's going to be the first one out of our album rollout that comes out September 20th. The album is called 168 Hours because that's how long we spent at the retreat. And yeah, it's a really dope album. It's got like pop, some like old school alternative rock. It's got a whole bunch of stuff. I even have some stuff with my own vocals on it. But yeah, that's kind of the main focus right now. And aside from that, putting a bunch of dope kits on Producer Crate. We just hit our 2-year anniversary, so we got some sales and shit going on. But yeah.
Stay tuned, guys. To by było na tyle. Dzięki za oglądanie. Jeśli dotrwałeś do końca i chciałbyś sobie powinąć paczkę Lunatic Production Suite, która została użyta do zrobienia 90% tego bitu, to kliknij pierwszy link w opisie. No i tyle ode mnie. Pozdro.